In this tutorial, I'm going to review the contents of the image toolbar here. While I'm using IRSA Viewer for this example, all the other IRSA tools with the same look and feel also have an image toolbar with the same functionality. In general, if you look to the right here, as I move my mouse over the icons, it tells you what the icon does. If I let my mouse hover, it also gives me a pop-up right next to my mouse that tells me what that tool does. You can also click on the context-sensitive help markers, the little question marks with a circle, and it drops you into the online help with help relevant to what you're looking at, in this case, the image toolbar. So, starting on the left, we have a diskette icon. If we click on that, we get a pop-up. From here, you can save the FITS file that you're looking at, that is the original data. You can save the PNG file, which is the image that you're looking at with the stretch and color table you've selected with the overlays that you have on top. You can also save just the overlays as a DS9 region file. We'll come back to this when we have more overlays to save. This zooms in, this zooms out. This zooms so that 1 pixel in the image matches 1 pixel in my display. That zooms out so that the whole image fits in my window. This zooms in so that the left-right dimensions of the image matches the left-right dimensions of my window. I can also change the color table. It comes up by default in reverse grayscale, but we can choose any number of additional color scales to enhance whatever details we're seeking to find in this image. You can also change the color stretch. You can choose from the predefined stretches that are available, or you can use the color stretch and it gives you a histogram of the values found in the image, and you can change the stretch interactively there. To apply whatever you've selected, click refresh. This will rotate the image by any arbitrary angle in degrees. This image is big, so it's taking a little while to do the calculation. This one rotates so that north is up. This swaps the image on the y-axis, in other words, left and right. This centers the image on the position of the target you searched on to get this image. You can also click and drag the image to move it around. The selection tool is pretty powerful. If you click on the selection tool, then you can click and drag in the image. Now you have some options up here. You can crop the image down so that it just includes the area you've selected. You can also get some basic statistics on the area you've selected. It gives you the mean flux, the standard deviation of the flux, both in units of the image as loaded. It also gives you the total flux in that square that you've selected. It also gives you the minimum flux, and you can see there's a little X that shows up at the location of the minimum flux, and the maximum flux. It gives you the aperture centroid, and it gives you the flux weighted centroid. It's a little bit hard to see the X on top of that color because the X is red, but it moves around depending on where your mouse is. You can also recenter the image on your selected area or zoom in so you're just looking at the selected area. Let's zoom out a little bit so that we can look at the whole landscape here. Now I want to measure some distances. If I click on the distance tool, I can then click and drag in the image to measure distances in the image. Now this has by default given me the distance in arc seconds. If I click on the layers icon, I get a pop-up that shows all the layers that we have on top of the image. The distance tool is currently in red. Maybe we should change it so that it's blue. We can ask it to also calculate the offset north and east. We can ask it to calculate that distance in degrees, arc minutes, or arc seconds. I'm going to leave the layers pop up here because we're going to add more layers to the image. Let's zoom out so that I have the whole view of the image included. Now, maybe I'm planning some observations and I want to add an HST footprint. There's the HST footprint. Maybe I also want to add a Spitzer footprint. There's a Spitzer footprint, and I can rotate it depending on what the rotation angle is of the observations that I'm planning. Maybe I want a web footprint. That's available too. As I'm adding these layers, you can see the layers are increasing in the pop-up over here. I can change the color of the overlays. I can also turn them off or on, or I can delete them entirely. I can also add a compass rose to the image. I can add coordinates to the image. I can even load a DS9 regions file from disk that I have that's going to add, in this case, a catalog of sources to the image. Now we have a lot of overlays. So if I go back to the diskette icon, now I can save the overlays as a region file, and it will save it wherever my browser is configured to save. This resets everything to the defaults, but some of the overlays are still there. So let's get rid of some of the additional footprints, leaving just my regions file and that distance indicator. This icon makes sense if you have many different images loaded. Let's say that I had several different band passes of this same region loaded. If I click on the lock icon, then changes that I make to one, such as a zoom or a color table, get automatically applied to all the other images that I have loaded. This allows me to look at the fits header associated with the image I have selected. And this table is sortable. So if I'm looking for a specific keyword, I can sort the fits header by alphabetically by keyword and then look for the individual keyword that I'm looking for. For additional help, don't forget that there's an online help tool here, as well as other videos in the IRSA YouTube channel.